You were never truly necessary. We could have managed just fine. Stephanie's words hung in the kitchen air, a toxic cloud. I felt my body sag, instantly aged a decade. My hands, which had prepared breakfast for this family countless times, trembled over the floral apron I'd sewn myself. I stared at my daughter, a stranger across the table. Where was the little girl who'd clung to my leg when I left for work? The teenager who'd sought comfort in my arms after every heartbreak? The young woman who'd sworn I'd be the first to hold her babies? I understand, was all I could force out. But I didn't. How could I? At 67, after selling my home, after waking at 5:30 a.m. without fail to care for my grandchildren, after shedding my privacy, my independence, my very space, to be told I was never needed. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. How a devoted mother becomes discarded like outdated furniture. Let me take you back a little. It started on a Wednesday afternoon. I was organizing my cookbooks, decades of collected recipes. Some inherited from my mother, others clipped from old magazines. Many bought during travels. Then the phone rang. "Mom?" Stephanie's voice was raw, choked. My heart seized. "What's wrong, honey?" "David got laid off. No warning. No decent severance." She choked back a sob. "I don't know how we'll make next month's rent. The kids, their school is so expensive, Mom." In that moment, I didn't think twice. Like any mother, I offered everything. Not just money, but my presence. My entire life. "Honey, I'll sell my apartment. I can move in, help with the kids while David looks for work." A beat of silence on the line. Then, a sigh. Relief, I thought. "Are you sure, Mom? It's your apartment. You and Dad worked so hard for it." "Absolutely. That's what family's for." 2 weeks later, the apartment where I'd lived for 30 years, where I'd raised Stephanie, where Richard's ashes rested in a small urn by my bed, was gone. I saved a few photos, some clothes, my cookbooks, and Richard's urn. The rest went with the sale or to charity. I moved into a small back room in Stephanie's house. It was cramped, but I made it cozy. Richard's photo on the nightstand. A Virgin Mary print on the wall. It'll all be okay, I whispered to myself that first night. The initial months were draining, yet deeply fulfilling. Gabriel, 8, and Sophia, 6, filled the house with chaos and joy. I'd be up before dawn, making breakfast. Animal pancakes for the kids, strong coffee for David, chamomile tea for an anxious Stephanie. "Grandma, tell the fishing story again," Gabriel would plead, halfway through his plate. "Only if you finish your milk," I'd tease, sharing a secret smile with him. After breakfast, I drove them to school while Stephanie worked with David on resumes and interviews. Afternoons, I'd pick them up, help with homework, cook dinner. "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you," Stephanie would say, her hugs a fleeting balm. Those words made me feel vital, needed, important. The money from my apartment sale, my life savings, my only security, dwindled. Overdue bills, then school supplies, new uniforms, Gabriel's dental work, Sophia's birthday party. "It's just until David finds a job," Stephanie promised. "We'll pay you back every penny." I believed her. How could I not believe my own daughter? But as the months wore on, subtle shifts began. Minor criticisms, fleeting glances, impatient sighs. "Mom, that's not how you fold shirts. They wrinkle," Stephanie would say, redoing my work. "Brenda, the kids need their sleep. You tell stories too late." David would grumble, eyes fixed anywhere but on me. One evening, serving the pot roast I'd made, Stephanie's childhood favorite, I realized no one spoke to me at the table. They conversed around me, as if I were a ghost. "Tomorrow, movies after school," Stephanie told the kids. "What about Grandma?" Sophia piped up. An awkward silence. "Grandma needs her rest," Stephanie said too quickly. "She does so much already." I swallowed hard, continued eating, pretending not to notice the deliberate exclusion. That same week, I found Sophia crying in her room. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I asked, sitting on her bed. "Mommy said I can't sleep with you anymore when I have nightmares. She said I'm too big." A sharp pang in my chest. Since I'd moved in, Sophia always came to my bed after a nightmare. I'd sing until she drifted off. It was our moment. "Your mom just wants you to be independent, honey," I managed, swallowing the bitter hurt. The months stretched. David remained unemployed, or so I was told. Sometimes he'd leave dressed sharply, return late. I didn't question it. It wasn't my place. One Sunday, washing dishes after lunch, I heard an argument in the living room. The walls were thin. Stephanie and David's voices cut through clearly. "Your mom's suffocating us, Stephanie. She's in everything." "I know, but what can I do? She sold her apartment. She has nowhere else." "It wasn't our idea. She offered. But her money saved us, David. Without it, we'd be on the street. I got the new job. In 2 months, we can get reorganized." "What about her?" "I don't know. Maybe an assisted living facility. She has her retirement." A plate slipped from my grip, shattering on the floor. The crash silenced them. I pretended it was an accident, but my hands shook so violently, I could barely gather the shards. That night, in my tiny bed, I looked at Richard's photo. "What do I do now?" I whispered. "Where do I go?" The answer came a week later, when David announced at dinner he'd landed a job. High-paying at a multinational. Stephanie popped a bottle of wine. They toasted, beamed, made grand plans. No one offered me a glass. 3 days later, Stephanie sat in the kitchen, her face grim. "Mom, we need to talk." And then I heard it. Words I never imagined from my own daughter. "You were never truly necessary. We could have managed just fine." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, replaying my entire life. Where had I erred? Had I spoiled Stephanie too much? Had I failed to teach her gratitude, respect? Or was it me, always seeking validation through tending to others? The next morning, eyes raw from crying, I called my sister, Sharon. We rarely spoke. She lived far. We had our differences. But she was my only option. "Brenda! What a surprise!" Her voice chirped. "Sharon!" My voice hitched. "I need help." I recounted every humiliating detail, every painful word. Sharon listened in silence for a few seconds. "Come here. My couch is yours for as long as you need." When I told Stephanie I'd be leaving in a week, I saw a flicker of undeniable relief in her eyes. It broke my heart all over again. "Grandma's leaving?" Sophia asked, confused, seeing me pack my meager belongings. "Grandma needs a space of her own," Stephanie said, avoiding my gaze. Gabriel, always the more sensitive one, found me when no one was looking. "Why do you have to go, Grandma?" he whispered, his eyes swimming. I held him tight, his small body warm against mine. "Sometimes, my love, people need their own space. But Grandma will always love you, no matter where she is." On the day I left, Stephanie was busy with an online meeting. David had left early. Only the children were home, with the new babysitter. "We'll miss you, Mrs. Lewis," the young woman said kindly. I hugged Gabriel and Sophia one last time, promising to see them soon, then stepped into the cab for the bus station. I looked back only once, seeing my grandchildren waving from the window. I waved back, swallowing the knot in my throat. On the bus to Sharon's town, I clutched Richard's urn to my chest. "It's just us two again, my old man," I whispered. At Sharon's house, I was met with a fierce hug. Sharon, always stronger, offered no pity, only solidarity. "It'll be all right," she said, taking my suitcase. "You're stronger than you think." That night, lying on Sharon's living room couch, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, I understood. At 67, I was beginning a new life. A life without definition, without clear purpose. A life that was finally just mine. It was terrifying, and in a strange way, liberating. The phone rang 3 days later. It was Stephanie. "Mom? How are you?" "I'm fine, honey," I replied, steadying my voice. "That's good." A pause. "Mom, could you pick up the kids from school tomorrow? I have an important meeting and David's out of town." My heart clenched. This was why she called. "I can't, Stephanie. I'm 3 hours away, remember?" "Oh, right. Sorry." Another silence. "The kids ask about you," she finally offered. "Tell them Grandma sends hugs and kisses, and that I love them very much." "I will. Bye, honey." "Bye, sweetie." I hung up, staring at the phone for a long time. Sharon, who'd been listening, sat beside me. "She only called because she needed something," I commented, tears welling again. "Probably," Sharon agreed. "But that doesn't define who you are, Brenda. It never did." That night, while Sharon slept, I picked up my old recipe book. Flipping through the pages, I saw memories. The cake for Megan's first birthday. The chicken noodle soup I'd make when Jason was sick. The Christmas cookies we baked as a family. It hit me. My entire life had been built around caring for others. That's how I showed love. That's how I felt worthy. But now, for the first time, I had to learn to care for myself. To exist for me, not for anyone else. I grabbed a pen, and on the last page, I wrote, "Today begins the recipe for my new life. Ingredients: courage, self-love, and time. Preparation. One day at a time." I closed the book. For the first time in days, I fell asleep without crying. Today, 6 months later, I live in a small rented apartment. I use what remained from my old home sale, supplemented by my modest social security. Megan calls occasionally, usually when she needs something. Sometimes I say no. It's hard, but necessary. I've started going to a community center for seniors, painting on Tuesdays, ballroom dancing on Thursdays. I've met other women with similar stories, mothers who gave everything, only to find themselves alone. It's not the life I planned, not the old age I dreamed of, surrounded by grateful children and grandchildren, but it's the life I have now. And slowly I'm learning that maybe the problem wasn't that I wasn't necessary to Megan. Maybe the problem was that I never allowed myself to be necessary to me. Yesterday, a drawing arrived in the mail. From Gabriel. A simple stick figure of a gray-haired lady, smiling, with the words, "I miss you, Grandma." I put it on the fridge and smiled. The truth is, it still hurts. It probably always will. But now I know I can carry that pain and still move forward, because I finally understood. My worth isn't in what I do for others, but in who I am. And that no one can take from me. But what happened after I moved out of Megan's house would reveal even more painful truths about my daughter, my son-in-law, and the fate of my apartment money. It was a Thursday afternoon, 3 months after I left, when the first piece of the puzzle fell into place. I was at the community center finishing my painting class when Sonia, a new friend, casually mentioned her niece worked at the same company as my son-in-law. Jason Miller, the one who started at Horizon Construction almost a year ago. I froze, my paintbrush dripping blue onto the canvas. A year? Are you sure, Sonia? Absolutely. My niece said he was promoted recently. He just completed a year last month and even had a recognition party. My stomach plummeted. A year, not 2 months. Jason had already been employed when they'd orchestrated my departure. That night, sleep was impossible. I replayed all the times Jason left for interviews, sharply dressed, returning late. The hushed conversations between him and Megan that ceased the moment I entered a room. The money from my apartment vanishing into overdue bills I never saw. The next morning, I made a decision. I took a bus to my daughter's neighborhood. Not to confront her, not yet, but to visit Mrs. Shirley, my old neighbor, the only one I'd kept in touch with. Deborah! What a wonderful surprise. Mrs. Shirley exclaimed at the door. At 78, she still wore her impeccable hairdo and signature red lipstick. Sitting on her small porch, teacups in hand, I casually inquired about Megan and the family. Oh, they're doing wonderfully. They renovated the whole house, you know? New pool, imported furniture. They say Jason's making really good money. Each word was a fresh stab. And when did this renovation start, Mrs. Shirley? Right after you left, dear. About 2 weeks, maybe. I remember because the noise woke me early. Olivia told me she was getting a new room, all decorated like a princess. I took a deep breath, fighting the tremor in my hands. And do they mention me? Do the kids ask? Mrs. Shirley's gaze softened. Gabriel asks all the time. Olivia did too at first, but, you know, kids adapt. But there is something odd, Deborah. I heard Megan tell someone on the phone you were in a nursing home in another city. Said it was better for everyone. The tea churned in my stomach. A nursing home. My own daughter, fabricating lies about my whereabouts. I said goodbye to Mrs. Shirley, promising to visit again. A promise we both knew was unlikely. On the way to the bus stop, I passed Megan's house. I couldn't help it. The facade was unrecognizable. New paint, a landscaped garden, even a new car in the driveway. All bought with my money. The money meant to secure my old age. I returned to my small rented apartment with a pain I couldn't quite name. It wasn't just betrayal or abandonment. It was deeper, more visceral. The feeling of being used by my own child, like a disposable object. That night, a vivid dream of Robert. We sat on the porch of our old apartment like we used to on Sunday afternoons. You were always too good, Deborah, he said, holding my hand. Too good for your own good. I woke with tears on my face, but with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The next day, I did something I never imagined. I sought a lawyer. Dr. David, a referral from Sharon, received me in his modest office. Mrs. Stone, from what you're telling me, we have a clear case of financial exploitation, he explained after hearing my story. Do you have any documents from the apartment sale? Any proof of transfers to your daughter? Fortunately, I did. Even amidst the emotional chaos, I'd kept every paper from the sale and the transfer receipts I'd sent to Megan's account. And was there any formal agreement about this money? Was it a loan? A gift? A loan, I stated, my voice firm. Megan promised she'd pay me back every cent once Jason got a steady job. Dr. David made notes. Mrs. Stone, I'll be honest. Suing your own daughter is difficult. Are you sure you want to proceed? I closed my eyes, recalling Megan's words. You were never truly necessary. I'm sure, Doctor. It's not just about the money. It's about justice. And it's for myself. I left his office with a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in a long time, I was taking action to protect myself, not others. 2 weeks later, Megan called. Her voice was strained, nervous. Mom, what is this? We received a legal notice. It means exactly what it says, Megan. I'm asking for the money that belongs to me. But Mom, you gave us that money to help. It was a gift. No, honey. It was a loan. And you promised to pay it back when Jason got a job. Which, by the way, happened much sooner than you told me. Silence on the other end. How did you find out? Does it matter? What matters is you lied to me. You used my money to renovate your house and buy things while you sent me away to sleep on my sister's couch. Mom, you don't understand. We were suffocating in that tiny house. The kids needed space, comfort. And I needed a place to live my old age with dignity, Megan. The money from that apartment was all I had. A sob on the other end. We can't pay it back now, Mom. It's all tied up in the house, in the car. Then you'll have to sell, honey. Just like I sold my apartment to help you. You're doing this for revenge, Megan accused, her voice now raw with anger. Just because we asked for our space back. I inhaled deeply before answering. No, Megan. I'm doing this for justice. And because I finally understand that I need to value myself as much as I always valued you. I hung up, hands trembling, but my heart strangely calm. The legal process unfolded. Months of documents, hearings, tension. Megan and Jason hired an expensive lawyer, claiming the money was a donation, that there was no proof of a loan. But I had the receipts, and more importantly, I had the truth. At one of the hearings, I saw Megan in the courthouse hallway, thinner, with deep shadows under her eyes. For a moment, that maternal instinct flared, wanting to comfort her, to say we could forget it all. But then I remembered her words, the flicker of relief in her eyes when I announced my departure, the lie about the nursing home. Mom, she said, approaching. Can we talk? Just us? We sat on a bench. Jessica looked anxious, fidgeting with her purse strap. Why are you doing this to us, Mom? We're your family. Precisely, Jessica. Because we are family. And family doesn't abandon, doesn't lie, doesn't use each other. We didn't abandon you. You could have stayed. We just wanted more space. While you renovated the house with my money? While you bought a new car and imported furniture? She lowered her eyes. Jason said it was better this way. That you had your retirement, that you'd be fine. And you believed him? Or did you just prefer to believe him because it was convenient? Jessica began to cry. I'm so sorry, Mom. Things got out of hand. Jason kept saying we deserved a better life, that we'd suffered so much. And I didn't deserve it? After a lifetime of work, of sacrifice, I didn't deserve a dignified old age? She had no answer. There wasn't one. You know what hurts me most, Jessica? It's not the money. It's knowing you. Let them treat me like a burden, when all I ever did was love you unconditionally. In that moment, I saw something in my daughter's eyes. Not regret. Not even guilt. It was recognition. As if for the first time, she truly saw me. Not just the mother who would always be there, no matter what, but as a person with feelings, with dignity, with self-worth. What can I do to fix this? She finally asked. her voice small. Giving me back what's mine would be a start. But respect, honey, that's something you'll have to learn to give on your own. 3 months later, I received word. We'd reached an agreement. Jessica and Jason would sell the car and some assets to return 70% of the apartment's value. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to start over. With the money, I bought a small apartment in a senior living community. Nothing luxurious, but comfortable and safe. A place all my own, where I can grow old with dignity. Jessica calls me once a week now. The conversations are still strained, heavy with unhealed hurts. But we're trying. She brings the grandkids for bi-weekly visits. Ethan always brings a new drawing for my fridge. Olivia, still a bit reserved, slowly starts to open up to me again. Jason and I barely speak. Perhaps some wounds are simply too deep to ever fully mend. Yesterday, tidying my new apartment, I found an old photo. Me, Frank, and little Jessica, smiling in front of the apartment we'd just bought. 3 hopeful faces, 3 hearts full of dreams. I placed it in a frame on my living room side table. Not to dwell, but to remember where I came from and everything I learned along the way. Today at 68, I'm learning to live a life I never imagined. A life where I say no when necessary. Where I prioritize my needs sometimes. Where I understand that loving doesn't mean erasing yourself. At the community center, I started teaching cooking classes. I share my recipes, my stories, my experiences. It's gratifying to see the sparkle in their eyes when they learn something new, when they feel capable. I've made new friends, people who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. Sharon and I are closer than ever. She visits often, always with a bottle of cheap wine we sip while laughing over old memories. And Frank, well, his urn of ashes is on a small shelf in the living room, next to a photo of him smiling. Sometimes I still talk to him before bed. I tell him about my day, about the small victories, about the pains that still linger. "You'd be proud of me, old man," I say, looking at his picture. I finally learned to stand up for myself. Last week, an unexpected call. Olivia. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey." "Mommy said you left because you didn't want to live with us anymore. But Ethan said it was because Mommy and Daddy asked you to." "Who's right?" My heart sank. Even now, Jessica was still spinning little lies. "The truth, Olivia, is that sometimes adults make mistakes. All of us. Me, your mom, your dad. The important thing is, even when we're apart, the love continues. I never stopped loving you and your brother. Not for a second." "I love you too, Grandma," she replied, her small voice conveying an emotion that warmed me. After that call, I messaged Jessica. "We need to talk about what you're telling the kids." She replied hours later. "Sorry, Mom. Old habit. I'll fix it." A small step, a tiny acknowledgement. But that's how you rebuild a relationship. Brick by brick, truth by truth. This morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. My room, in my apartment. I brewed my coffee just the way I like it. Strong, with a touch of cinnamon. I sat on my small balcony, watching the street below. I realized then that, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lonely, or abandoned, or unnecessary. Because I finally understood the deepest truth of all. I was always necessary. To myself. The doorbell rang. It was Diane, here to pick me up for our dance class. I grabbed my purse, took one last look at the apartment, arranged exactly my way, and stepped out to live another day of my new life. A life I chose. A life I built from the ashes of rejection. A life that, despite all the pain, is worth living. Because now I know my worth isn't in what I do for others, but in who I am. And that nobody, not even my own daughter, can take from me. This is my truth. This is my strength. This is me, Pat, at 68. Finally living for myself. And you know what? It's never too late to start.